where Fat Girl Flow, as you can see from the title of this article, I can't wipe my own and I am okay with that. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we are going to be talking about the subject of leaving fat acceptance and the problem that people still seem to have with that. So the main thing that we're going to be talking about today is actually someone that we've talked about before, and it's very interesting that this has come up again because this is something that we talked about over a year ago. And so the person that's kind of in the middle of all this is our friend Rosie Beam, I think is, I forget how to say her last name to be honest, but we talked about her about a year ago. And it was in response to Fat Girl Flow, who is a big creator was at least a big creator in the fat acceptance, fat positivity, fat liberation space, right? And there was this whole kind of back and forth between Fat Girl Flow and Rosie. It wasn't really a back and forth, but it was publicly a back and forth where Fat Girl Flow, as you can see from the title of this article, I can't wipe my own and I am okay with that. And that is in response to Rosie, who ended up making a post, who, if you don't know, Rosie was also a creator in the fat acceptance or, body positivity space for a while. And they kind of came out saying, hey, I want to start losing weight. And a big reason for that was because they were struggling to wipe themselves, right? And that was a very serious problem that they were having. And they just, with obviously a myriad of other things that were going on, and they decided they wanted to lose weight, do whatever they needed to do. And then the fat acceptance people kind of had something to say about that. Now, the reason that we're talking about it again is because there was another post that was made almost talking about Rosie and the fact that she has been losing weight and doing her own thing. And it's just so interesting, the things that are the same, but also some of the things that are different, especially on that post where, it's this like random, I don't even know. I think it's like some random magazine kind of made this article. So this is Rosie's Instagram right here. And so I follow Rosie. And so I was looking at her stories one day, or it was earlier, like last night. And I saw a specific story that I thought was interesting. So obviously I was on my phone doing this, but I saw this, right? And I was like, what is this, right? They don't understand nuance and my name isn't Rose. And so it was this thing. And as you can see, she is responding to what this thing was saying, right? And so I think the easiest thing to do will be just to go to the actual post. So this is the post that was mentioned, right? And it goes on to say, this isn't about personal choices. It's about a repeated dynamic where fat liberation gets mined for content and discarded when the reality of the work demands more than branding, right? And so it goes on to say, do you agree? Drop your thoughts below. And then if you can see, comments on this post have been limited. All right, well, I guess I can't drop my thoughts below, so I'll make a video instead. And so let's go ahead and see what this is about. So if we go through, again, this is the quote that we just read. So fat liberation gets mined for content, discarded when the reality of the work demands more than branding. So basically that's kind of saying anyone that was in the fat liberation space that decides to leave is doing it not because for any other reason than, oh, I'm not making enough money off of this, which I think is disingenuous to say the least, right? And then it says, when Rosie Beam announced that she was no longer body positive, it wasn't shocking. It was familiar. We've seen it before. Influencers using the language and visibility of fat activism to grow a brand, then distancing themselves when it's no longer convenient. And I think it's interesting because I feel like a lot of this stuff, it just turns into everything is a brand. Everything is about making money. When in reality, like a lot of times people get into specific niches or brand things because they are genuinely interested in that thing, right? And so I don't think everyone that's in fat acceptance is in the fat acceptance space because they are doing it because they're trying to make a lot of money. Yes, of course there are certain people that are doing that, especially in the influencer space, but I think that to say that there's no one that's in this space at all ever that is not trying to make money off of it, or like that just, I think that just goes to show that that's how these people see the whole thing. All of body positivity, the only reason someone would be in it is because they want to make money. But it's interesting because it's fine when that person decides to stay into body positivity, fat activism, whatever, right? But the second they decide to leave, everyone's like, well, they just wanted to make money anyways. They were just trying to make money. And it's like, why is it okay if they decide to stay and make money? And like, I think it's better that if someone's like, you know what, my ideals and the things that I want no longer line up with the messaging and the things that are going on here. So I'm going to step away and I'm going to do something that feels true to who I am, instead of being like, well, I guess I'll just stick around because, I don't know, I don't really want to leave. But let's keep going. The 1980s and 90s saw pockets of fat activism amid exploding diet culture. The 80s were centered on gym culture and body obsession. In the 90s, my mother had gastric bypass surgery, reflecting that era's normalization of extreme body modification. Self-love couldn't protect us at the doctor's office, at work, or in relationships. Like Rose, again, she says her name isn't Rose, a lot of us remember being on Tumblr in the 2010s, inspired by plus-size fashion and fat people, looking genuinely stylish. It was the first time we saw fat women not just wearing clothes, but styling them, loving fashion, feeling good, which is a good thing, right? Body positivity was once a radical framework, was reduced to self-love mantras that didn't hold up in real life. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with this, but I don't think that you can't say like, oh, this is Rosie's fault. I think this is the fault of, one, social media just in general. But I think when anything becomes a movement in the size, especially that body positivity, fat acceptance, or whatever you want to call it, was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that's when it was probably at its peak, maybe a little bit longer ago. I don't know exactly, right? It gets watered down. And so it got very, 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 very popular. A lot of people were inspired by it. I don't think everyone that was into it for a while was a negative thing, but I think that they took the pieces that inspired them and made them feel good, and they used that. But with that happening, things kind of get watered down. And I don't think blaming, Rosie for the choices that she made, especially because, she said, I lost weight because I wanted to be healthy, right? I don't think that it's just so strange to like be upset about that, right? But going on, many plus-size influencers performed alignment with body positivity, but never fully took on its politics. It became branding, a clean, sellable aesthetic, especially when inclusivity became profitable. Lots of brands, I would say, did that for sure. Plus-size influencers are not the same as fat activism. One is a job about marketing and capital. The other is about change and collective survival. And so that's kind of the whole post. And it's interesting because if we look at this post, I wanted to go over this post as well, because this was from Rosie, and this was from about a month ago, maybe a little bit less than a month ago. This is May 19th when she posted this, right? And she kind of said this, right? Why I'm no longer body positive, and that's okay. And so she goes on to say, I found the BoPo community on Tumblr. Just like any movement, body positivity came in waves. Its origins are argued about depending on who you are. Ask either a group of mostly marginalized people or a group of creepy dudes. But it's been remolded and reshaped over time. I found it on Tumblr. #Fatshin, #BoPo, and other hashtags showed a ton of big people in fabulous outfits. As a plus size 20-something, I felt seen. I loved this content so much. Eventually, Instagram came into all of our lives, and the first round of Instagram fashion bloggers showed up. I love seeing my favorite Tumblr Fatshin. I don't know, Fatshin feels like a word I shouldn't say. Creators on this new app. I liked sharing outfits, and I felt confident in my body, so I began a journey as an influencer who promoted plus-size fashion. I gained followers and started using #bodypositive hashtags to find other girls in my size group who also had a passion for fashion. Baby, let's go. Weight loss, 100% no. In 2017, after about 6 months into growing an audience online as a plus-size influencer, I was feeling self-conscious. I had left my retail job where I spent most of my days on my feet. Now I was on the computer trying to build a business while working at a call center. I had put on about 25 pounds in a short period of time. I posted a vulnerable, self-conscious Instagram story that I'd like to shape up and lose weight, but not lose my curves that I had come to love. I was immediately met with critical DMs from people who I looked up to as OGs in the body positive space, telling me to remove the Instagram stories. And then it says, rule number 1 about body positivity, absolutely no discussion about intentional weight loss allowed. I felt horrible. I put my head down and vowed to never mention it again, which is so sad that someone that she felt bad about being like, hey, I'm not really feeling great in my body and I want to do something about that. And then people are like, no, you can't do that. It's just wild, right? Curves are a commodity. Eventually, body positivity started trending with non-fat creators, people who had recently had children, women with a little extra meat on their bones. Brands like Aerie and Dove started using the term body positive to simply mean I love my body. There was little to no acknowledgement of the phrase's roots in activism. During this time, I started getting amazing brand deals, met other BoPo creators, and that's when I got weirded out, right? And so this was definitely when it was at its peak, right? I remember that for sure. Around 2018, maybe 2019, 2020, around that time was when I would say, especially during the pandemic, things were at its peak when it came to body positivity and stuff like that, right? Money and lipo makes the world go around. I was lucky to meet so many of my biggest heroes. I was fortunate to attend plus-size meetups, conventions, and chat with people who felt like celebrities to me. But behind closed doors, there were strange conversations that made me feel uncomfortable. Discussions about targeted liposuction to the chin, upper arms area to make the influencers more profitable to brands while still maintaining their body positive image, right? So this is stuff that kind of reminds me of when we think about like Tess Holliday. She always says F your beauty standards, but she's had, again, and this is fine if you want to do it, but she's had tons of different cosmetic surgeries and a bunch of other things that she's done to her body that directly aligns with the normal, beauty standards. But again, it is what it is. But that's kind of what I think about when I see that, right? I met one of my favorite self-love creators, and one of the biggest things they said to me was an unsolicited comment about how they noticed my acne. I've witnessed heated discussions among plus-size influencers clocking the weight loss of other fat influencers, scrutinizing their every post, comparing photos as if they were before and after images. So it's interesting. It's very like Mean Girls high school energy that I'm getting, right? And then she goes on to say, at this point, I wanted out. By sticking to the rules, I also had reached a point in my own health journey where I felt pain and had mobility issues because of my weight. I was scared. My income and friendships were tied up in this community. Was it worth the risk to leave? I started seeing a therapist who helped me come up with an exit strategy to leave body positivity and the online fat acceptance community. I first resolved to no longer use body positive hashtags and take up space in community I no longer agreed with. I stopped speaking about my body and spoke more about my hobbies. I shared brands that carried sizes in both standard and plus size. I was too scared to share my desire to pursue weight loss or my critical thoughts on how the body positive community feels about intentionally losing weight. Plus, I had learned from the body positive community that where my body was at now was where it was supposed to be, right? Intentional weight loss doesn't work. Where my weight was now might be my weight forever. And bringing attention to myself would put a target on my back. Was it really worth it, right? And so what she's speaking about there, and I think it's very interesting, there's a big difference when it comes to most people. Again, one of the biggest issues with body positivity, fat acceptance, all this stuff is that everyone kind of has a different definition of what it means, and there's a lot of infighting. But one of the things that I noticed is most people that are very entrenched in the body positive fat activism side of that stuff, they are very anti intentional weight loss, right? And so the argument that they'll always say is like, well, if you happen to lose weight by adopting, habits that are, they wouldn't even call them healthier, but, habits that have you moving around more and enjoying exercise and eating for your body, and you happen to lose weight, that's one thing. But if you are intentionally trying to lose weight and doing these things to lose weight, then that's bad. And then one of the biggest no-nos in all of body positivity is before and after photos. Like, there's certain people that, like, if they do post a before and after photo, or they even talk about it before, and they'll put like a trigger warning, and it's like, I think that the trigger warnings exist for a certain person, and I think they can be helpful, but sometimes I think it goes a little too far, if I'm being completely honest, right? And so they will, but like, that's a very, very big thing, right? Intentionally losing weight. So being like, I am going to work out because I want to, lose 20 pounds. I'm going to eat better because I want to lose blah, blah, blah. But if you are just eating a different diet and you happen to lose weight, then that's like more okay. But again, it's like, you can't really mention it. You can never really mention the fact that you've lost weight. It's like, if it happens, it happens, but you can't talk about it. It's very bizarre. But it's definitely something that I've noticed a lot with everyone that I've talked to that was part of this community, right? So it goes on to say, my therapist assured me that one day I would be able to speak my truth in an honest way that wouldn't hurt or belittle others. I knew how much strength and joy body positivity can bring, and I didn't want to diminish that experience for others. So, I mean, what I'm seeing here so far is someone that is very clearly trying to be honest and not just crap on other people, right? And so it's just so sad how it seems that the response is just no, the nuance is completely taken away, and it's like, this person's just evil and they only wanted to make money, and it's like the humanity is stripped away from Rosie, right? And then one day in 2022, I felt brave enough to make the first step in sharing my desire to lose weight. And so this is one of the posts that she made. So this was August 26, 2022. It says, in pursuit of an authentic life, I've recently shared my Instagram stories and I'm pursuing some weight loss. As a person who has who can be considered a face of the online body positivity landscape, I have felt much fear and guilt about being transparent about this. However, I would like to enter this conversation compassionately, as I too felt anger, animosity, and alienation towards others who revealed similar intentions. My truth is simply this: I am tired. Tired of advocacy, tired of applying intellectual rhetoric to my body, and tired of living inauthentically to the signals my body, heart, and mind have been sending me for a few years now. Certain people in the body positive community feel so passionately about the advancements of rights for fat people that they believe the intentional pursuit of weight loss in any capacity is fatphobic. I understand this sentiment, and I understand the beautiful desire to protect the livelihood of people who have experienced the trauma of living in our culture in a fat body. I want you to know that if you feel anger towards me, a person who encouraged you to love your body, who is now publicly discussing thoughts of wanting to change her own, that I hear you. I hold space for you. I want to share that in this 300-pound plus body, I have found creative stimulation, career success, friendships, the love of my life, beauty, and joy. I don't think of fat bodies as undeserving, incapable, or without value, as I have evolved in my thoughts regarding my presence online. I noticed a gray area. As fat people, we are expected to either lose 150 pounds or never lose a pound and become role models for self-love. I am interested in neither one of those identities. I am seeking to feel more comfort in my daily life, less fear of inaccessible public spaces, and some ease. I will continue to showcase clothing ranges outside of my own and bring upsize expansion to brands I support on this platform. If this is no longer a place you feel comfortable to visit, I bid you a fond goodbye and a thank you for your support of my work. I have nothing but love to offer my friends here, and that's why I offer you this vulnerable piece of me today, right? And so, again, I think a very sweet, understanding post where it's like, yo, if you got to go, I understand. I'm not here to attack you. But again, people were still upset, right? The end. Just kidding. We're just getting started. Bootygate. During the pandemic, I put on quite a bit of weight and was unable to clean myself without the use of a bidet. Finally, I met a milestone where I was able to clean myself by hand. I felt ecstatic and at the same time was incredibly frustrated by the hatred I was receiving in my DMs. Most of the DMs were about my looks and how I was seemingly acting more cocky. One day I was so fed up, I did a couple of things. I spoke out about how hot I was getting and that I was proud that I could finally clean myself again. I didn't say these things elegantly. The phrase I used was wipe my own ass. And that got attention from New York Times, Bill Maher, and fat activists. Because of this media coverage I was getting, all of my content was under a magnifying glass. One day, I was being trolled by a bunch of men for posting videos of myself on a treadmill, so I clapped back and made a video of me eating ice cream on a treadmill with the caption, "When you're trying to lose weight, but your man likes it thick." After posting this video, Body Positive Fat Acceptance created videos analyzing my content, calling me out for trolling them. If I had made the same content 5 years prior, it would have been seen for what it was. I saw fat influencers I had met on NYC rooftop suddenly making fun of me in their content. I saw people suddenly referring me as a former fat mean girl, and I was still fat. Fat activists make money off fat-phobic content. And then I realized something. The platforms of fat activists thrive on salacious discourse. They actively seek out content made by people with dissenting opinions so they can create clapback content and make money. Yeah, who would do that? No, I would never do such a thing. The video views, the blog views, these people were making money off of me. A formerly body-positive influencer openly celebrates her weight loss progress. Content ripe for analyzing. Yes, 100%. I agree with that. A lot of these people claim they simply wanted to protect the community. But would the community have heard any of this if they had not invited the discourse? Most of these influencers were not following me when I shared my booty celebration to my Instagram stories. How did they find it if not in some dark and dingy Reddit hovel? Never trust a community that cannot take criticism. It's definitely something That is very common with the body positive community. The body positive community cannot agree on where it started, much less a universal definition of what body positivity means. To some, it means loving your body. To other, it's a community rooted in the radical acceptance of fatness. Body positivity is an online community, has no code of conduct. Its members pay no dues. So why exactly are there people who are dead set on enforcing rules? It took me therapy and years of distance to start unlearning the behaviors which I had to follow to be welcomed as part of the community. A community which told me that there was only a place anyone would allow me to belong in our modern world as a plus size woman who does not hate her body. You built your platform on the backs of fat people. Fat people as a group are not a monolith. I have had people who have been following me online for years who had gastric bypass when I was celebrating my freedom to eat 10 cupcakes. To think people simply follow me or any other formerly fat creator for their body is objectively and is objectifying and an oversimplification. I think that's a really good point. It's like, oh, we speak for everyone in the fat acceptance community. We speak for everyone that is fat. I think that's almost always a bad sign, right? Like whenever I make these videos, I always try to say, this is how I feel. This is what I think. And like when people will claim that, oh, I speak for everyone here, it's you have to be a little careful for that, for sure. No one cares that you lost weight. We just care how you talk about it. So again, that's something that you hear a lot from fat acceptance people. It's like, we don't care that you lost weight. It's just the fact that you're promoting it or you're saying anything about it. But it's like, yeah, losing weight is difficult. And if someone is excited about it and wants to share it, especially if it's something that they've struggled with for a very long time, right? Most people that are significantly overweight for an extended period of time have tried to lose that weight sometime. Maybe it's 3 times, maybe it's 300 times. But once you're actually successful, it's exciting and you want to share it. And it's so bizarre to be upset about someone sharing that, right? How do people care when people do care when an influencer loses weight? When an influencer is silent on their weight loss and never mentions it, they're hiding something. When an influencer loses weight and discloses it, they're mean. It's a lose-lose situation. That's a good point. Labels are weird. My body is organic matter. It's changing every moment of every day. I no longer wish to let it live by any rigid code of conduct, especially when it comes to the weight. Some might say, oh, that's body neutrality. You're just body neutral. No. Why does my relationship with my body have to be defined? That's a good point. My feelings toward my body on any given day go through numerous ups and downs and bone-chilling curves. It's a rickety roller coaster in a small town we're surviving out here. I'm still so surprised that a community rooted in progressivism is so determined to control both the speech and bodies of women and gender non-conforming people. Why now? Wanting to intentionally lose weight does not mean you hate your body. I often see people asserting that the pursuit of weight loss is inherently disordered. I disagree. 5 years ago, I would have considered making an adjustment to my diet for my health a moral failing. Now I am pursuing weight loss surgery, not because of my internalized fat phobia, but because I have finally given myself permission to say that I am in control of my own body. I recognize that I could live more optimally and more joyfully with a change. If you are living your best life in your body, I believe you. If you feel you aren't living life to the fullest and you're hurting, I believe you. I hope you believe yourself. I hope you trust yourself. It took me forever to do what I inherently knew I wanted to do for myself, and I am so glad to be here, right? And I think that's the end of it, right? And so, again, I think that this post is the thing that triggered that other article from that magazine. And I think it's just so interesting because I feel that there was a lot of stuff that could have been discussed much better instead of just being like, oh, she's just fatphobic now and it is what it is, and she's just doing it because she's not making enough money off of it anymore. I feel like that's just so lazy in my opinion, and it's like I don't even understand what they were trying to get out of it. It's interesting actually looking at some of the comments on this post. Now, obviously, the majority of them are going to be positive about what they're saying because I think they limited it to maybe who's following them. But it's interesting because it seems that some people disagree, right? And it said this one right here, I had to stop reading when you called her Rose. If you're going to call someone out, even though she's extremely transparent about her life, at least get her name right. I agree. And then this one, right? I'm so tired and quite bored of Rosie being a scapegoat for all of this blatant drama. Make a point, have an argument without perpetuating the targeting of individuals when this is obviously as you mentioned, multi-decade, multi-generational, and nuanced issue. It's honestly embarrassing at this point. And I feel like that is such a good comment, right? Because just like being like, it's this person's fault, this is the reason, and this is a bad person, when in reality there is a lot of what goes into making someone like Rosie want to be body positive and finding genuine like help, and like that being something that was really, really helpful for her at that time in her life, and how Tumblr was existing at the time, and all of this stuff was going on, and like just getting out of, which sadly we're getting right back into, like the super thin, everyone needs to be, the heroin chic, as thin as possible, the low-rise jeans, your hip bone showing, like that's what we were in before. And then we got into what we were a few years ago, where I always talk about the pendulum kind of swung really, really far in the other direction, where it was body positive. Every single brand was making plus size stuff, and everyone was everyone in the body positive community was making more money from that. And then all of a sudden now we're swinging again right back to what we were doing before. It's just constant, right? It's just this constant like swinging and swinging and swinging. When this is why I always tell people, like, just be healthy. The size and being skinny and skinny talk is just, I think they just got that hashtag taken off of TikTok because of everything that's been going on with that, right? Like, when you're focused on, I want to be as tiny as possible, or if you're focused on, I'm going to be as big as possible, I don't care, that's a problem, right? There's more to your life. There's more to who you are than the size that you are. That's kind of how I feel. But I thought that this was a very interesting thing that's gone on. I think it's very interesting that it got brought up again, right? And that's just kind of how I feel. I think Rosie did a great job in that initial post where she kind of shared how she was feeling. It didn't feel like it was attacking anyone. It felt very cordial and just being like, this is how I feel. These are the things that I am going through, right? And I think that she did a great job. But again, that's just my thoughts. I would love to know what you think down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.